Here is the much requested plate carrier setup and review. Just a quick little side note, before I jump into the gear, I'm still building this out myself, so I don't have everything I would like to have, but I am going to cover obviously what I do have and what I've loved so far and maybe what you don't need to spend your money on yet. As always, everything I talk about and all of the gear can be found on my kit page of my website, gunmanusa.com. It can all be found in the kit setup section, which will have plate carriers as the photo. So actually I have 3 different setups that I use pretty commonly to train with, but to start things off, we're going to talk about my most commonly used kit we have here, which is the Trex Arms AC1. I've been running this carrier for over a year now, and it's very comfortable, minimal, and does everything I need it to when it comes to training. Now, depending on what I'm doing, I'll have either my full combat kit attached, or I'll just use my training placard, which is a lot lighter and a lot more minimal. And I'll actually start with the training setup that I use most often. Inside this sized medium AC1, I have HESCO L210 special threat plates. These aren't the best plates in the world, but they are good enough to stop most common rounds without being ridiculously heavy. I went with the size medium AC1 because that's what Trex Arms recommends if you're running these specific plates. I'm 6'3", 190 pounds, so I think I could definitely move to a large, but medium covers all of my vital organs, so I'm good to go there. Also inside, I have these Trex Arms plate backer set, which I 100% recommend buying even if you aren't running plates yet. You are going to want them when you're running plates, but they are good to have until you do, as they give the plate carrier a little more sturdy form without plates. Some people might have a problem with the placard I use for training, but it really doesn't matter because you can either purchase the same one I use on Amazon that's really inexpensive, or you can get a similar looking one from a trusted brand like Haley Strategic for a lot more money. At the end of the day, they're going to do the same thing, one may just last longer. I use the inexpensive yet durable one from Amazon. It's honestly been perfect for all the training that I do so far. It retains my mags really well, holds all my stuff, and I don't really know what else you could ask for. Nowadays, especially when it's hot, I'll just throw this onto my X harness that actually came with my Haley Strategic placard, and I'll run this without a plate carrier just as a way to hold my mags without having to strip my combat setup every time I want to train. This setup has worked great for me, and I've had absolutely zero issues with it so far. Don't get me wrong here, I definitely recommend buying more expensive, nicer setups if you can afford it. But if you can't, this is a great option that I've used and can recommend. As for my combat setup that you see here, it definitely looks like there's a lot more going on, but really that's just because the placard is a little more heavy duty. When I was doing my research, I really wanted to find something that could hold 6 mags on the front, but I had to learn to compromise because I also wanted sections to place other gear. But I found this one from Haley Strategic that holds 4 mags up front plus 2 pistol mags, as well as all the extra gear that I needed. This setup is way more expensive, especially because I went with Haley Strategic for the placard, which yes, they make great stuff, but there are a lot of options out there. So definitely don't just buy what I have. There could easily be a better option for you. But if there are no budget issues, then you can really just do whatever you want. And so far, I can definitely recommend Haley Strategic as a great option. One thing to note though about Haley is they don't include things you would think would come with a placard, like the mag inserts, which you have to buy separately for $40, so be aware of that. To finish off this carrier and to hold everything in place, I have the Trex Arms backstrap Y adapters, which basically just allow you to tighten down your placard so it's not bouncing around when you run. I do really like these because it holds everything down really well while still allowing me to breathe due to the elastic. Inside these pockets here, I keep a little bit of medical gloves and a couple of the random tools, and then I have my mini trauma shears right on the front for easy access, and also keep a full trauma medical kit strapped to the side here. This whole setup as it is with the plates cost around $1,000. I still do need to add a radio. I want to add a hanger and possibly a backpack so I can grab everything I need in one. But if you know me, I like to take my time and research what I like when building up kits so I can reduce the amount of money I waste on pointless things. So far, I really love both of these setups, and I think you would do really well with what I have if you're just getting started. I did though recently watch a video on plate carrier setups which has completely changed the way that I feel about this. I definitely need to add a place where water can be stored, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. If you're starting at square one and you just want something to train in, I would get the AC1 with the Amazon placard and some kind of medical, a way to carry water, and the plate backer set. I would also invest in some less expensive level 3 plates, and I'm definitely going to talk about these later, but that should give you everything that you need to get get training. I wouldn't get comfortable with that setup though. I would make a plan to pick up a set of really good plates and build out a kit so that it can do what you need it to. I do have a third setup that I use occasionally. It's a very simple 3-mag placard from T-Rex Arms on another AC1 in large. I also have the plate backers set inside here, and the plates that I have are level 3+ from a company called Predator Armor. Now, there are a lot of questions in the community about plates, ratings, and which is the best and why. And when researching information to create this video, I was pretty uninformed when it came to this stuff in general. So I reached out to one of the owners of Predator Armor who was happy to answer all of my questions. He was actually so interested that he accepted my invitation to come out to my studio and answer the questions himself. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to have Kurt answer all of the basic questions to bring you up to speed on armor, plate levels, and the pros and cons of different types of armor. It is important though that I acknowledge, though Kurt is very knowledgeable on this topic, I encourage you to seek many different opinions and forms of education on this in order to have the best, well-rounded understanding of the topic.
I'm Kurt from Predator Armor. Glad to be here today. Glad Sam invited me on. Hopefully answer some questions and talk a little bit more about body armor. So first we'll talk about the different levels of plates and kind of what those plates will stop. The levels come from the NIJ Standards. The NIJ Standards, or the National Institute of Justice, NIJ, they establish minimum performance requirements as well as testing methods for the ballistic performance of body armor. The way they do that is they break it into 5 types based upon level of performance. Those 5 levels, they increase as you go up. So it's pretty straightforward. So it starts off with level 2A, then it goes to level 2, 3A, level 3, and then up to level 4. As you increase up those levels, the ballistic performance of the plates increase as well. Level 2A and level 2 are not quite as common in the market. They're pistol rated armor. So your level 2A is gonna stop 9mm 40 and your 40 calibers. Level 2 is gonna stop 9mm and 357. And then your level 3A, which you see much more common, and mostly it's just because the advancement technologies. Level 3A armor, it can be super light, super thin. Most people just go straight to 3A. But 3A stops your 9mm 357 all the way up through your 44 Magnums. So really 3A is your handgun armor, and then once you jump up to level 3, you get into rifle armor. In order to be rated level 3, the NIJ standards stipulate that it must stop a 7.62, really your M80 military round. It's a 147 grain bullet traveling at 2,780 feet per second. Anything above that is great, but that's kind of your minimum performance requirement. It has to be able to stop that in order to be rated level 3. And then jumping up from level 3, we get to level 4. Level 4, you get into armor piercing. Level 4 armor, in order to meet the NIJ requirements, level 4 armor must stop it's the military M2 AP round, which is a 30 caliber armor piercing round, traveling about 2,880 feet per second. Those are the NIJ ratings. Another common one you see it's not actually in the NIJ ratings is level 3+. Some companies also just call them special threat rated plates. Really the reason for level 3+ is because it's that large gulf between level 3 and level 4. There's a pretty big gap between level 3, which just requires you to stop a 7.62 FMJ round, and level 4, which requires you to stop AP rounds. So obviously AP rounds behave very differently. They're, literally made to pierce armor. There's a lot of bullets in between there, a lot of different rounds that might go in there. A common one's the M855. That's a really common question. Does that fall under level 3 or would that be above level 3? Since level 3 is FMJ and you have a partial steel core in your M855, the NIJ is actually clarified on that. The M855 is outside of level 3. You also have a lot higher velocity rounds. The NIJ standards don't actually go over 5.56 there, so your higher velocity 5.56 also would technically fall outside of level 3. So a lot of companies come out with special threat or level 3+ plates to kind of fill in that gap. It's designed to stop your M855 rounds, your higher velocity rounds, really just to help fill in the gap there between your level 3 and your level 4 plates. One common misconception we see pop up with the NIJ standards, the NIJ standards establish a minimum performance requirement. So you have to meet that minimum in order to beat that level. There's a big gap in between there. It's just a common misunderstanding, for example, with our level 3 plates. Our level 3 plates will stop, and our level 3+ will stop a 30-06 round. They'll stop 7MMs, they'll stop your 300 Win Mags, 6.5 Creedmoors, they'll stop a lot of these rounds. And so we get comments and questions where people say, hey, a 30-06 round level 3 plate can't stop 30-06, but our plate does stop 30-06, and it will not stop a 30-06 AP round. In order to be level 4, you have to be able to stop a 30-06 AP round. So if we don't meet that minimum requirement, you're going to automatically fall back into the lower level as long as you meet all those requirements. So that's commonly a misconception. You have to meet that minimum performance requirement in order to meet that level. You can always exceed that requirement, and that's great. As a consumer, it's better if the plate exceeds the standards, but it's got to meet that minimum. So if it doesn't meet that AP round for level 4, then it's going to fall under level 3 or 3+, depending on how companies define their 3+ plates. So the distance of a shot on plates is a common question as well. Does that matter? How close is it? So the NIJ tests at 15 meters. That's how they do all their testing. And I'll just say the shot distance makes a huge difference. So speed is the killer of armor. Obviously, once you get out distance, you lose a lot of speed and impact force really quickly. That just makes a huge difference on the plates. I mean, you can see the NIJ standards, they specify very specific velocities on their test standards. We've shot some of our plates, even 5 yards will make a difference. We'll shoot a certain round, it can penetrate at 10 yards, we scoot back to 15 yards, and it won't penetrate the plate. Speed really is the killer of armor, and you just lose a ton of velocity at distance. So it makes a big difference. One good example of distance matters. So our level 3+ plate, it's level 3+, so it's not rated for AP rounds. If you shoot at a close distance, 15 meters, you're gonna penetrate that plate with an AP round. But we've tested it out at 50 yards. We have other people who've shot 308 AP rounds at our plate at 50 yards, and it doesn't penetrate the plate. It just takes enough velocity and impact force off it at that distance that it's not able to penetrate the plate. So that's one example. There's many examples. We could said with about 5 meters, you can shoot our level 3 plate with a 18-inch barrel out of your 5.56 or 20-inch barrel, and it's going to penetrate the plate with a 20-inch barrel if you shoot M193 rounds. Just the velocity's so high on those, it'll penetrate the plate. But if you scoot back, 5-10 meters, it no longer penetrates the plate. So those are just some good examples of how much even a small distance can affect, the performance of your body armor. So big difference between level 3+, level 4 plates. If you're out there shopping, what's the best option for you? But they're good questions. So mainly, as we discussed, level 3+ is not in the NIJ standards. And really the big difference you're gonna find between level 4 and level 3+ plates is one doesn't stop AP rounds. But it is a little tricky because level 3+ is not in the NIJ standards. So there's no set standard, whereas level 3, level 4, level 3A, they have a set minimum performance requirement. That's not the case with level 3+. Level 3+ was kind of used to fill that gap between level 3 and level 4. I'll tell you, your level 3+ plates, depending on your company, you really just need to first off do your research on what they say about their 3+ plates. What is it going to stop? Because every company's 3+ plate is going to have a different ballistic performance, either better or worse than another company's 3+ plate. So our 3+ plate is a great example. We've hit it with 300 Win Mags, 7mm, 6.5 Creedmoors. It stops all these. And depending on velocity, of course, does come into play here, but it stops all those rounds. But it will not stop your 30-06 AP round to meet level 4. So really the big difference there is that. And so as a consumer, for me, myself, I run level 3+ in mine. Obviously, I have a little bias, so I run Predator Armor level 3+ plate in my kit. And I think 3+ is an awesome option for consumers. First off, you have a lot more options available to you. You can get to level 3+ through a variety of different materials. You can do it with steel armor, you can do it with ceramics, you can do it with UHMWPE style armor. So really it opens up the field a little bit more to the type of body armor you want to run. Also, with that comes a lot of pricing options, more pricing options available to you, how thick the armor is, how thin the armor is. So it really opens up the field a little bit. And as I said, the big difference is if you don't think you're going to encounter a 30 caliber AP round, which in my mind, it's pretty rare you're ever going to run into that, your level 3+ plates are going to stop basically anything a level 4 is, at least our level 3+. It's made from AR650 steel, and it really is it's a tough plate. It'll stop. I would put it up against anything that a level 4 is going to stop really up until you get to AP rounds. So I think level 3+ is a great option for most civilians, for most people. Like I said, you need to always weigh your threats you're going to run into, and I just myself don't consider a 30-06 AP round a real threat to what I'm going to be running into. So I think 3+ is a great option for most people. So another common thing that comes up is what's kind of difference between metal, ceramic plates, and even WPE plates. There's a lot of different kind of materials used for body armor. So obviously right off the bat, it's just the biggest difference in material used, but what does that actually mean? There's lots of pros and cons to different types of body armor, and I always say there's really no perfect body armor. If there was a perfect body armor, that's the only type that would be made, but that's not, because there's no perfect. Different body armor might work in different situations, different use cases. Really, it depends on what you feel is a threat and what you think is necessary for you and your situation. So we can quickly run through some pros and cons of different types of armor. So we'll start with steel. That's primarily what Predator armor, we have done steel plates. We're working on some ceramic and poly plates because, as I said, we really want to provide a full swath of products to everyone and their different needs. But starting with steel, so steel has some real pros to it. It's durable, extremely durable, basically indestructible, right? We've put ours through some pretty serious torture testing. We've ran it over with a truck because some people said, oh, well, hardened steel isn't a little bit brittle, which is just a misunderstanding. It's still a steel plate. So we've ran it over with a truck. We've shot it with a 240 Bravo. So it's just extremely durable. Also, along with that, it's the best multi-hit capable armor that you can get. We put one of ours through a torture test. I said we hit it with a 240 Bravo. We put 10 300 Win Mag rounds on it, 20 5.56 rounds on that plate, nothing penetrated. It just can take a beating. They're very durable. Also, it's got a super long lifespan. Your lifespan on a steel plate is 20 plus years, whereas with other armor types, you're looking at about 5 years usually. It's also very thin profile. Our armor plates are only a 1/4 inch thick. That's another big plus depending on how you run your armor. Another plus to steel armor is you don't have to worry about heat concerns. Certain types of armor, if they get too hot, you are gonna have issues. Never run into that issue with steel plates. Another great plus with it that is minimal back face deformation. That comes up a lot with, soft armors, UHMWPEs, but with steel, you just have minimal back face deformation. It's not really a concern. That doesn't mean you're not gonna have energy transfer through the plate to your body, but that back face deformation is not gonna cause any issues with your steel plates. And another big plus is the price. Steel plates are a lot cheaper than most alternatives. And whether or not people want to talk about that or not, price does come into play whenever you're purchasing anything. Now, cons. There are two big main cons to steel armor that people get held up on. First one is weight, and the second one is frag and spall issues. Now, I can go into more detail on those. Maybe I'll talk about some of the pros and cons with ceramics and UHMWPE, and then we'll kind of address some of those other issues. So ceramics, your biggest pro with ceramic plates by far is that you can get to level 4. You have greater stopping power with ceramic plates. Another big benefit is you don't have as big a concern with frag and spall. It's not entirely eliminated, but your issues with frag and spall are drastically mitigated as compared to steel with ceramic plates. So along with not having to worry about frag and spall, another benefit to ceramic plates is they can be much lighter weight. Not always the case, depends on the model you're buying, but ceramic plates can be very lightweight as well. The other thing there is you do get a little more variety with ceramics in terms of how thick or how thin. Some do level 3, some do level 4. So you do have a little options there with ceramic, but those are the big main pluses. Mostly the stopping power is your biggest plus with ceramic plates. Now, some of your cons with ceramic are, one, they can be expensive. Price, they can be really costly. There are some affordable options. When you get into more affordable options, it starts to take away some of the other pros, such as your lightweight. So some ceramic plates, you can get down to under 5 pounds on a ceramic plate, which has awesome stopping capabilities. It's gonna be very expensive, but you do have affordable ceramic plates that are not so costly. The issue with those is they're gonna be a lot heavier than your higher end ceramic. So you start to lose some of the pros with that as well. Obviously, one of the biggest ones is they're fragile. You have a ceramic face on a plate. This is a HESCO ceramic plate. It just kind of on the front here, you'll have a ceramic plate. So you have to be careful with them. You don't want to break that ceramic plate because then it can obviously jeopardize the integrity of your plate and its stopping capabilities. A couple other cons is they can be very thick depending on the make and model. And some of them are 1 inch thick on a ceramic plate. And then also they have a short lifespan. So most ceramic plates have about a 5-year lifespan on them, and then you need to replace your plate. That's not the ceramic as much as the backing material behind the ceramics that usually has the shorter lifespan. but most ceramic plates are gonna have about a 5-year lifespan on them. The last type of armor, getting increasingly popular and is a great option, is UHMWPE armor. So it's the polyethylene. Basically, it's a plastic plate. It's really impressive. Some of the pros on that are it's the lightest weight options you can get. I mean, you can get all the way under 3 pounds with a poly plate. The other pros are they're buoyant, so they float, but you get into some cons with them as well. In terms of, the biggest one is price. So they're very expensive. They're usually very thick. So usually your poly plates are close to 1 inch thick. The other con is you only can get to level 3 or 3+. You can't get to level 4. So just like steel, you can't get to level 4 with your polyethylene armor or with your steel armor. Only with ceramic is kind of the way it usually goes. In terms of some of those pros and cons, we talked about steel. Obviously, I'll kind of go over that a little bit. So the 2 big cons on there are weight and spall and frag. So the weight thing is a little bit overdone in today's market. Technology advances on all kinds of materials. The same is true for steel, as well as, you know, your aramid fibers or your polyethylenes. I see people always like, oh man, I don't want to carry 30 pounds. You know, it's just it maybe was the case 10 years ago. But like I said, our plates are 1/4 inch thick. They only weigh 7.5 pounds each plate. So your whole kit's gonna be 15 pounds. So that it's a little bit overdone. A lot of ceramic options you get in the market actually will weigh more than 7.5 pounds. Like I said, your cheaper ceramics are going to weigh more than that as well. So that one's a little bit overdone, but it is a concern. I guess if, you know, for the typical person who might be throwing their kid on an emergency for a couple hours or going to the range and training for a few hours at a time, I really don't think 3 or 4 pounds is gonna make much difference. Now, if you're on patrol all day, you know, wearing your plate carrier 12+ hours, or you're hiking mountains in a war zone, yeah, those extra pounds do matter. I understand that. So, I mean, it like I said, depends on your circumstance and what you're running, that it might matter, depending on, you know, what your need for the armor is. The other big negative is frag and spall, which is a real concern with steel plates. You need to do something to mitigate your frag and spall. There are a lot of options. We think our option is obviously the best, and that's why we do it. We actually take our steel plate, we wrap it in a couple layers of Kevlar. Kevlar obviously is proven in the industry to be very bullet resistant. And we use it's a type of Kevlar, it's a woven Kevlar that's used for frag blankets and other things like that. And so we actually wrap a couple layers around it, finish it off with a clean nylon fabric over the top, and glue it all down. So really the idea behind that is when that bullet impacts there, the fragments get caught in the Kevlar, and you don't have to worry about them exiting into your body. So it's a great option, great solution. Some of the other benefits to that is it keeps the plate really thin, doesn't add much bulk to it, and it keeps it lightweight as well, or lighter weight, I guess. You don't want to add more weight to a steel plate if you don't have to. So that does eliminate frag and spall. We've tested it. We've had lots of people test it. I mean, you can go check some stuff out on that. There are other options in the industry for mitigating frag and spall. So just check it out before you buy a steel plate, what your options are for mitigating frag and spall. But that concern, which is a real concern, can be mitigated. Now you got your body armor. Another question that comes up is, how do I wear that body armor? Where's the proper place to wear body armor? Which is a great question. The most common size of body armor is 10 inches by 12 inches. This is our 10 inch 12, and it's shooter's cut. So we cut off the corners. Really, that's for mobility reasons. Body armor is meant to cover your vitals. So there's a big trade-off, obviously, between, you know, bigger armor, more armor, and mobility and weight. So really, body armor is meant to protect your vital organs, the most important parts. The standard is you wear body armor should touch at the top, right at kind of where your collarbone, just below where your collarbone meets, right there at the soft part of your neck, on your throat right there. So it'll come up there, right there below the collarbone, about 1 inch below your collarbone is kind of where they meet, is a great place to land up at the top. And on the bottom, your stomach will be exposed below the body armor. As he said, you know, you're trying to cover your vitals. You have a much better chance of surviving if you get shot in the stomach if you do in the lungs or heart. That's the idea behind it. Now, why don't you want your stomach covered? And that comes back to the mobility. I mean, if you have a rigid piece of armor all the way down, you're gonna have no mobility to really move around. And I said that it really is a trade-off. There are companies that make 8x10 plates and 11x14 plates. We don't currently offer those, just that's more simply due to demand as well as production processes and other things. But that's not to say they're not valid. If you're a little bit smaller frame, maybe an 8x10 sufficiently covers, you know, from your collarbone down through your vitals. Or if you're a bigger guy or bigger gal and you need 11x14, that might be the case. As I said, it's a trade-off. Obviously, with a bigger plate, you're gonna have more weight. It's gonna restrict mobility. A lighter plate, you know, a smaller plate's gonna weigh less, and you're gonna have a little bit more mobility. So it's all a trade-off, but just understand the idea behind body armor is to protect your vitals, really the most dangerous threat to you. And so it's just up to you to decide, hey, what's best for me and what fits me best. But I'm gonna say that 10x12 plates will fit the high majority of individuals. It'll cover your vitals. And when we talked about ceramics, different types of armor, here I'll just run a quick comparison. We can run side by side. You know, here's our level 3+, our steel level 3+ plate, and this is Sam's. He runs a HESCO L210. This one, the HESCO, is actually a ceramic, and I believe, I'm not super familiar with this, but I'm pretty sure it's a ceramic plus UHMWP backer on it. And it's a special threat tested plate. So they're special threats, basically the same thing as level 3+. It's saying, hey, this doesn't just test to level 3, it's also going to stop your M855 and some higher velocity rounds. And so that's kind of the same thing we say with our level 3+. So our level 3+ plate, as I say, it's made out of AR650 steel. It really is it's just about as hard a steel as you can get on the market. Our level 3 plate will actually stop M855. And so the big difference here with our level 3+ plate is the fact that it's going to stop higher velocity rounds as well. I mean, USA made body armor. There's lots of great companies that make great products, and HESCO makes a great product here. Mostly the difference you're going to find between these two plates is similar to kind of what we discussed about ceramic and steel anyway. Many of the pros and cons are going to be consistent across here. The one thing about this plate is it's also very thin. Your HESCO, you can see it's almost about the same thickness as our steel plate. This plate weighs about 5 pounds. Our plate weighs 7.5 pounds. So it's a little heavier, it's steel. Your ceramic plate here is going to be a little more fragile. You have to be a little more careful with it in terms of that, whereas it's not a big concern with the steel plate. So a lot of those same comparisons are going to kind of run across here. But one other thing that comes into play is price, as we mentioned. That's one of the big benefits of steel armor, is the pricing. So our level 3+ plates, we have a sale on them right now. You can get 2 level 3+ plates for $150. That doesn't include the Kevlar wrapping. You have to pay upgrade to get a Kevlar wrap. But as I say, if there's other options out there you want to go for that, you know, you have a preference, you can do that. I just encourage you to get the Kevlar wrapping. But even with our Kevlar wrapping, you know, you can probably get a set of 2 plates similar to the price of 1 of your ceramic plates. That's also something to consider, you know, when you're comparing the two. There are benefits and negatives to both, to all different types of armor, and whether or not you love it or you don't want it to be part of it, price always comes into play when you're purchasing body armor. Another great example with steel plates. I mean, as I said, I have some bias, so of course I run our 3+ steel in my kit, but it's a great kit for the car. Like, steel is, I think, a perfect option for a car kit because I'm not carrying it on a regular basis, so I'm not worried about the extra weight, and it's basically indestructible. You know, I have it in my trunk of my car or the back seat of my truck. I throw stuff on top of it. I don't worry about it because I'm not going to break or crack it, damage it in any way. And also, hot summer day, your car can get super hot. The backing on ceramic plates and poly plates, how those go together is really what it is. They're layers of they're sheets of plastic basically, little thin layers of material. They're pressed together at high pressure and heated to fuse together. Now, under heat, those can become delaminated and they lose their integrity. The armor is not going to work the same once they become delaminated. So heat is a concern with those. So if you're leaving it in your car on a hot summer day, you know that can be a concern. Kind of just harping on it, but decide what's best option for you. I think still for me, like my car kit, I can't get a better option. But maybe, like I said, if you're on patrol all day, the weight's gonna matter. There's things to consider in your situation. So really just kind of consider those, and then you can start weighing what armor option is best for you, and then find the deal that fits your budget. So last question that we're gonna cover today is, why do you need a plate carrier and plates? What is even the purpose of having it? There's tons of different reasons people buy body armor and plate carriers. Whether, you know, you just want something for home defense, same reason people have guns, right? It's for protection. Whether it's for your profession, we have a lot of, you know, professional security officers, law enforcement, that obviously need protection more often. Or whether it's just for training, going to the range, you hit in the range, you want to train with it, provide you protection there. Really, there's a wide variety of reasons. Another, you know, simple thing, like even backpack armor. We provide some backpack armor. It's just a simple solution to add a little protection, slide it in the back of your backpack. For whatever the reason may be, people have that choice. It's their right to have body armor. And really that's kind of one of the reasons, you know, kind of our mission statement really is we wanted to provide anyone who wants it, civilian, professional, whoever may want body armor, we wanted to provide a USA made product, high quality product at a price that anyone can afford. You don't necessarily have to use it every day. We really wanted to offer something that says, hey, this does what it needs to do, provides you the protection you need, but also it's at a price where any civilian, any person can go out and purchase it. So that's really what we've tried to do as a company, and provide everyone that option. Because it doesn't really matter why they want body armor. The fact is they have the right to have that body armor, excluding a couple states. If you're in those states, you should talk to your legislation. New York, Connecticut specifically have body armor bans, so reach out to your legislatures if you're in those states and try and get that fixed. But if you're not in one of those 2 states, you have the right to buy body armor, and that's all that really matters. So you do you, and you buy it if you want.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
All right, so I think I covered everything. Make sure you go out there and train hard. T-Rex Arms came out with a great training course on their website that doesn't require a lot of ammo. Make sure you're utilizing the gear that you own so you can become proficient in preserving life. Also, make sure you contact your state representatives and let them know that you support the Second Amendment and are not in favor of tyrannical gun laws that infringe on your ability to protect innocent life. You are your own best defense, and I'll see you in the next one.